What I'm going to do is try to answer this and sort of think aloud as I'm doing it. So I'll do this in parts. That sort of protects me. So if I make a mistake, I don't ruin an entire video. At least that's my hope. It also gives you the chance to view it in parts. So here we go. In the top framework, roughly sketch the business cycle with RGDP along the vertical axis and time along the horizontal axis. Let's make this model begin roughly 1990. And what I'm saying here by this piece is we don't have to be precise about this. We're not trying to copy exactly what the data actually look like. We're just modeling our business cycle sort of like we did in one of the homework questions. I believe it was number 7 in the unemployment chapter. Although I think we did it with the growth chapter because it fits better there in my opinion. Anyway, I also hit some highlights of the business cycle. Since 1990 and 92 we had a recession. Then we had a pretty booming economy with the tech bubble, and then we fell into recession again in 2001, and then we recovered from that and sort of ran into what was then the housing bubble, and then we had a recession after that. So, and then since then, of course, we've had slow growth that accelerated into the coronavirus, and presumably this will be current period that we're in now will be called a recession. Certainly, GDP growth has been negative since the coronavirus came along, although we might be in recovery. Time will tell. So, can we draw that? Well, let's label the axes as I said there. So we're talking about RGDP, and I don't know why you won't let me put it that where I want to put it. How about here? Okay. Let's proceed as if this is going very well. Okay, that's as close as it'll let me go to the axis. So this doesn't have to be done on a computer by anyone but me. So text. Fine, if you want it to be capitalized, we can do that. Now then, make this tiny, and maybe I can move it up here. And I'll come back to that. So my business cycle, that's the thing that's like a wavy line, right? It's that has its ups and downs. So I'm using a Mac, but you could, of course, do this, as I said, on paper. And 1990, things weren't too bad, but then we slid into recession. So how do I want to draw this? I'll draw this doing fairly well for a while, and then in 92 we fell into recession. So let me see if I can just keep using these little parabolas and have our business cycle this way. I think I can. Take this up here. So that would be roughly corresponding to 1992 in here, and then we had a recovery which went on until as I said, about 2000, 2001. And if I were doing this with a pencil, I could make my lines nicer and smoother, but I would have to have a camera of some kind over this to do any kind of a video of that. Think aloud like I am, so I don't have the means to do that. So then we had the recession of 2001. So I'll make that a pretty sharp drop. I don't know how sharp it really was. The way I remember it was pretty sharp. And then since 2000, from 2001 until the Great Recession, we had the economic growth of the housing boom. It corresponded to the housing boom. And then we had the Great Recession that came on in 2008, really. It was officially December 2007. But 2008 is when we all really kind of felt it. And I might have not allowed myself adequate room. And that was a pretty steep one, so I'll make that show up pretty steep. Maybe I'll shorten these. The 90s maybe shouldn't be that long. How about this? And then, so here I am. This is the things were chugging along nicely from 90 to 92. I'd say it's about 2 years. Things fell. We had a recession. We had a nice recovery through the 90s till about 2001. And then we had another decline. It actually was a short-lived recession. And then we had our recovery until the Great Recession. We had the housing bubble burst, and then we had a pretty steep, fairly deep recession called the Great Recession, it tends to be called. And then we had a period of expansion until 2020. And it did kind of accelerate toward the tail end. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think that's coming along with the historical facts in a bit of an abstract way. I'm not plotting. If we wanted to plot exactly what happened, we wouldn't be doing this in this kind of a document. We would be doing it in like a spreadsheet and using data. We're not doing that. And we know we had a deep decline in output in our current state. And what we don't know is sort of where this is. So why don't I just say, we don't know. How about that for the present? We know we're in some kind of a decline. So this green dot that is the bottom of this is where really we are. Maybe this dot here, or somewhere in here. So that is our business cycle, and we have our expansions. These are the upward sloping parts. We have our peaks, right there. That's a peak. And then we have our recessions. These are the dips. And at the bottom of each recession, there is a bottom and there's a trough. The question is, are we in a trough or are we in a double dip recession? I don't know. So I'm going to make this a dotted line. Now then, number 2, in your framework, draw a line of best fit through your business cycle. And recall that GDP growth has been about 2% a year since 1990. So now what that means is I have this wavy kind of line that represents GDP moving through time as it does with ebbs and flows or the business cycle. But through it all, we do have a line of best fit that represents the long-term real GDP growth of the economy. So let's just start that at the same place, or roughly the same place in 1990. And if it's growing at, I wanted to say 2% a year just to point out that this wouldn't be a flat line. This would be a positive slope line. And it would maybe be it would be something like that. And I'll just make that a different color to indicate that that's my line of best fit. And I like the way that fell out because from 1990 to 2020, that's 30 years. And if we were growing at 2% a year, according to the rule of 70, it would take 35 years to double. So this looks to me like if this was the output of 1990, I'm shy of doubling in where I am in 2020, roughly. I could probably back off that a little bit. And this I'm going to have not quite lined up because I don't know what's going to happen right where we are right now. That's the thing. We see these things, as I say, in the rearview mirror. We get the data and we get to analyze it after the fact. So I think that I think that fairly well illustrates our business cycle and a line of best fit through it. What I didn't specify, and maybe I should, is to label the parts of the business cycle, because that's a good practice, but I already went through those. We have our peaks, we have our troughs, and we have our expansions. I'm just showing them here with the cursor, and we have our recessions. So I think that's a pretty good demonstration of questions 1 and 2, which relate directly to this first framework. I'm going to stop recording here and pick back up with numbers 3 and 4.